So, good morning, everyone. Dana and me, we want to show you what happens just after you have submitted your data to PANGAEA. So, data publication is similar to a paper publication. Several teams of our PANGAEA group will take care for your data. So there's a technical team, the editor-in-chief is the editorial team, and last but not least, our PANGAEA editors who will take care for your data. And you and the authors of data submission are also involved in this publication process. So it's not a fire and forget to submit data to PANGAEA. In the next minutes, I want to show you the points of this working workflow of PANGAEA publication. It's the number 2 and the number 3. This is the initial review of data publication and the acceptance or rejection of a submission. So, and you know what I want to say. Again, as yesterday, if you want to go into details of this process, please see our author's guides where we have described this workflow and also the timelines and publishing options for PANGAEA. Okay, so what we are doing in the first step when your submission arrived in PANGAEA or in PANGAEA submission form, we are doing an initial or a first review. This means that we are looking on your submission and check for completeness of the submission, and we have to decide what to do with your submission. The best case is you have used our templates, everything is clear to us, and we can accept your paper on the left-hand side and just assign it to a PANGAEA editorial, which is more or less a waiting position for the next process step. Sometimes we have some questions to you, and that's a point where we really need reactions from you because we see that the submission is incomplete, but it fits to PANGAEA, and we decide that there are only few questions we would like to ask you, and you have to come back to us, and we can, if you react and the submission gets complete, accept the submission. And if you are looking on the right-hand side, you can see that also in this first step, it can happen that we have to reject a submission. So what does it mean in detail? I just want to start with a rejection of a submission, the right side. So what we are checking in the first steps is, do the submission fit the topics or the subjects which we want to publish in PANGAEA? If not, we have to reject it. That's what we have you told before for model data, gene sequences, software, and so on. The next step is that we are checking if we have georeferenced earth and environmental data, or for example, experimental data, as Flavia showed you yesterday. But you haven't followed our author's guides, so maybe we have to reject it. It's the same, it's the same if we see that you have only submitted very few metadata and we even can't get an impression of what have measured, what have you done, we have to reject it. Standalone PDF documents, which seems to be more a paper or documentation, will be rejected in this first steps, as well as if you have submitted complex data tables with overcoded structure or macros or coding, editing, and so on, we will reject it and don't accept this submission. And sometimes we have the impression that your submission would be better hosted by another repository which has a specific focus to your topic. This is sometimes the case for mineralogy, petrology, or some very specific seismic and earthquake data, or for example, for museums collections. Request additional information. So you will get an email from our ticket system that we need some more information for your submission to evaluate it. So what we are doing here is, first of all, we are checking the metadata. So do we have metadata, or are some really relevant metadata missing? So for example, the title, the abstract, do we have event site or sampling information? If not, but we see, okay, we can go on with the submission if we have it, we will ask for it. We also check this information for plausibility. Especially for the abstracts, we are checking if we have the what, when, where, why, and how have you measured it. But we are also checking the license, if you have chosen a good license or not. The next step is that we are checking also the data. Do we have data? Sometimes the data upload failed and we ask you what happened. Why don't we see data files? Or do you need an upload link but you haven't clicked on the checkbox, for example? And we check for usability. Do we have a clear data table structure? Do we have column headers with a unit or not? Have you submitted an Excel sheet with macros on formulas? We maybe ask you, please don't do it. Just save it as, for example, text file so that we don't have formulas. Coloring, editing can't be inverted to our data structure. Or if you want to add, or if you have added graphs into your Excel file, for example, it's not working, and we will ask you for that. So here you can see what you shouldn't do for the metadata, for example. Please don't give the data title as data for paper title or just a paper table data title. Or for example, just table 1 data. Yes, we know you have submitted some data. It's better to give what has been measured and where has it been measured. It's the same for the abstract. Please don't add only the paper abstract. We can't copy paste it to your data publication. What we are expecting is a specific abstract describing your data. For the license, you can choose 3 different licenses, but if you choose CC 0, we will ask you if you are really sure about it. Best way will be CC BY. And if you are giving references, you should give the full DOI or the full citation of the reference. What is not helpful for us is the manuscript ID or DOI, which is a placeholder, as you can see here. For the tables or data files, here an example of a table. You see what you can do or what you should do is please use our templates where we ask for all relevant information, and please use a well-structured data table with a full column headings and the units. Please don't do something like here on the right-hand side with some acronyms, some information about the sediment core, and we have to guess what kind of, yes, I know it's benthic foraminifera, but we really can't see which species are here mentioned. And please don't, oops, what's that? And please don't mix up numbers and strings in one column. Okay. We also may reject your submission after you have given us some more files, for example. So if we ask for the files and you have uploaded the files, we just check the files and see, oh, it's not fitting thematically to PANGAEA. We have to reject it even after you have reacted to our request. It's the same for the metadata. Maybe you have completed the metadata, but then we realize that this submission does not really match to PANGAEA after all. If you have data files and tables prepared not as we suggested, we really have to reject it because we can't do this formatting work. It's often really time-consuming work and we can't do it for you. Last but not least, it's really important to get feedback from you because we are sending several reminders, but if you don't react on our requests, we have to submit your data submission. As I told you before, it's not a fire and forget, but you are welcome to resubmit, to prepare a new submission with an updated data set after you have spent some more time and an intense preparation, and we then want to re-evaluate your submission. Okay, and the best way is we can do it in the first step or even after we have asked for some improvement, we accept your data submission. So what's happening then? When we have accepted your submission, we assign it to PANGAEA editorial. This is a waiting position for the next step, which means that your submission will be given to a subject-specific editor as soon as he or she is available. Even there, in this step, it can happen that your editor sees that the submission is not really fitting the topics of PANGAEA, and even here it can happen that the submission can be rejected. But in most cases, your submission will be prepared for upload in PANGAEA. Please be prepared to answer questions and to work actively with your editor also in the next steps. Okay, and that's the point where I want to give over to Dana.
Perfect. So as you heard from Steffi, so the data publication is actually a collaborative process between you authors and us editors. So we need a platform for exchange of information. And you've heard yesterday when you submit data set, there will be a ticket generated or an issue. And through this ticket, you can communicate, and you will communicate with us. So there are several ways to access the tickets. You can click the link in your email. You can go to your PANGAEA user, where you will find a list of your open tickets. You can also go directly to issues.pangaea.de, where you will find the same. And so in the ticket itself, you will basically find the summary of your metadata. And below that, there's a space for the communication. So you will be writing comments with us. So it can happen during the publication process, since your submission was basically accepted in principle, and the final publication, that you still need to change some metadata or data that were originally submitted. So I'll start with the metadata. So although there is this summary in the ticket header, we ask you to not edit metadata there, but instead click on this blue button, Edit Metadata, which will take you back to the original submission form. And there you can comfortably edit your metadata and save it. So it's a better way to exchange the metadata information with us, because then a small file is written for us, a JSON file which contains all the information from the submission form, and it helps us correctly transfer the metadata to our database. So it's if you edit the data directly in the ticket here, it can happen, and it will likely happen that we will oversee this change, and we won't be able to follow the information. So you can also, through the submission form or through the ticket, add additional files. You can also exchange files, but what you won't be able to do is delete the old version of the files. So this is technically not possible, but you can always give us a message that the files are maybe replaced by a new version, and we will work with that information and only basically transfer the latest version to our database. Okay, and then also later on within the editorial process, when already your data set is online but you request some changes, if you do the changes of the metadata here in the ticket, don't expect that change will be automatically mirrored to your data set online, because there is always the editor between you and PANGAEA database that needs to reflect these changes. So once your submission is assigned to a data editor, we are working with your data to basically bring them to PANGAEA database. For that, each of us has a certain toolkit, tools that you also work yourself for editing your data, and also a special big software piece, editorial system, which basically is a graphical user interface for us editors to communicate with PANGAEA's relational database. And our work as editors is basically to edit the data on metadata level. So we basically connect your data with existing or new metadata in the database. And here the keywords would be standardization and harmonization, so that the data that are published with us are then interoperable. And in less frequent cases, we also edit the data on data level. Ideally, this is not necessary if you followed all the author's guidelines and used or get inspired by the templates that we provide. But small adjustments can be maybe done by us editors as well, because it might be faster. So, for example, we can help you standardize some formats that you forgot. It's like unit conversions from centimeters to meters, which are standard with us in PANGAEA, or if two values are in one cell and should be basically in two columns. So these small changes, which are faster done than communicated than there and back, would be done by us, and we will inform you about what we've done in the next step. And the next step is basically when we transfer your data to our database, we also create a landing page on PANGAEA.de. We will provide you with a link under which you can then have a look at the draft of your dataset in PANGAEA and provide us with your feedback. So what we expect from you to carefully check all the metadata, all the authors, titles, abstract, and so on, very carefully to have a look if we understood what you have measured and with which methods, so the parameter names and units. Very important that you check this. And if we made some other specific edits on your data, we will inform you about that, and you really need to concentrate on checking this, because in the end, you as the author are always the ones responsible for the information shared to the world. So we need first your approval to finish the publication process. And also, once we share this link with you for the first time, this is actually when you will already know your future DOI. So you can already work with this information. You will already know what your future citation of the data will be. Now, the last step is the publication. So once we share the link with you, the metadata are already findable and accessible for everyone at PANGAEA. So the metadata are always open access in PANGAEA. But we have had discussions yesterday that for data it's a little bit different story, because we have the possibility of keeping the data under moratorium. So in the beginning of the publication process, when we share the link with you, the data are only accessible to you. And later on, we decide under which mode we proceed with the publication. So we have basically two options of the status. So we can, once you approve, publish the data right away. So the status changes from in review to published, and shortly after that, the DOI will be registered. And that means the dataset is then finally citable, and actually no major changes should be done. So exceptions to these changes are, for example, if you in the future publish a paper related to this data or based on this data set, we can still add the reference to this data set, or something minor can be still changed. The other thing is the other status option is keeping it in review for a little bit more, maybe up to 2 years. And during this time, the data set is considered not to be final. Basically, any changes can happen to this data set in the future. It can be even deleted if you decide to, or if maybe you have a paper publication process running at the same time, and based on that, there is a need to change the data set itself. It can be done. So basically, this is more a flexible option in case you are not quite sure if the data are in the final version. And for both of these statuses, we have two options. Either the data set can be open access or under moratorium. So so that depends what you need to do with the data set. Some journals require the data to be open access to everyone. On the other hand, you might also work under closed access mode. So this is really the 4 options we have to fit your needs. Okay, for the closed access options, we also can provide you with access to a certain group of people, like, for example, for reviewers of your related paper or to your direct collaborators, and you just let us know that you need this access link and we will generate it for you. These links are valid to up to 180 days. And everyone with the link can access your data. Now, your data is published. What happens if you still realize there are some changes needed? So this can happen, of course, then mistakes happen all the time. So we have some versioning options in PANGAEA. So if the changes that are needed are relatively minor or can be easily described with a comment, we can add a piece of metadata called change history, which will basically add this line to metadata headers saying when the change happened and what exactly changed. So with that, the citation of the data set stays the same. If the changes needed are much more complicated and you have a completely new version, that's also possible. So we can basically publish a new version of the dataset and connect it with the original version of the dataset, which then won't be findable in PANGAEA search anymore, but will still exist because the DOI is registered. We cannot simply delete it. It just won't be so obviously visible and findable. But for example, if this older version was already related to some published research somewhere and somebody knows the DOI exactly, they'll be taken to the old version of the dataset and they will find this information that this dataset was replaced by a new version. And finally, I would like to talk about publication types we have in PANGAEA. So obviously we publish datasets, but datasets can be related very closely to a paper publication. So basically you start with publishing the dataset. In parallel you are publishing a paper somewhere, and they can be more or less synchronized and cited in both directions. But it doesn't always have to be like that. Of course, it's possible to simply publish a standalone dataset because datasets published in PANGAEA have enough metadata to be standalone in any case. You should never need any related paper to understand and reuse the data. And then we also have data publication types, so-called collections. Example of those could be, for example, publication series. These collections you can imagine maybe like a book that consists of chapters. So each of these chapters would have their own, or each of these individual data sets would have their own DOI, would be independently citable, but would have an overreaching collection, which could be then cited as a whole bundle. And so the publication series is a collection of data sets that are very similar. For example, there would be data sets measured during different stations of a single expedition. Also, this publication series might be some meteorological series, and every month you add new data to that. So these collections can also be open-ended. Another example would be so-called bundled publication, where the tables don't necessarily, or the data sets don't necessarily have to be similar to each other. These data can be heterogeneous, but the important thing is basically that they are put together into this bundled publication because PANGAEA publishing them independently would basically some kind of connection, some important information would be lost, and they would not be understandable and reusable as individual entities. That's why they can be put into bundle to increase their reusability and understandability. Yeah, that would be all from my side. And do you have any questions?